You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining me this morning. With new tariffs starting to take effect, auto dealers are asking what legal steps they can take to soften the impact. Joining us today is someone who's been advising dealers in this very area for decades. That's Len Bellavia, who's the founding partner of dealerlaw.com. Len, thank you so much for joining us once again on the show. Very much appreciate it. And so dealers are looking for every little ounce of profitability they can get their hands on in light of all of the tariffs that they're going to be dealing with here. And you've got a unique take on this. So talk to us about this. What are some of the...
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you again, Jim, for having me back. I appreciate it very much. Always a pleasure. I guess I should start off by saying that, what's most concerning to me is that many of my dealer clients are not concerned. So, I speak to them regularly and say, how are things going with the impending tariffs? And they say, hey, business is great. This will blow over. Yeah. Trump's got it under control. And I say, wow, talk about letting your guard down. I think what's happening is dealers generally have felt they become so resilient because let's face it, between the chip shortage debacle, the pandemic, over the past 5 years, they've been able to overcome just about every challenge and they're still standing. So, that's a blessing and a curse because, I guess they feel like they can adjust as needed. Sure. And the curse is, they're going to let their guard down potentially too much. The difference, I think, between the pandemic and the chip shortage is that we all knew that there would be a beginning, a middle, and an end to those problems because those things just naturally would seem at the time would get resolved and business would be back to normal. Even if you feel that the tariff negotiation, if you will result in some type of closure, I think that intellectually dealers need to understand that the average cost of a car is going to go up permanently. Right. I don't think that result is going to be zero tariff. So if the average price of a car, payment was $450 and now it's going to be $750, I mean, you have to measure the impact that that's going to have on consumers. And I think dealers are saying, well, all that means really is maybe I'll lose money on the new car side, but I'll pick it up on used cars. Yeah, but you got to find the used cars. I mean, everybody's in the same boat. So I'm just concerned that they're not viewing this as a potential, a long-term crisis. Right. So the dealers that will listen to me, I've been trying to convey to them that they need an action plan. And, the one nice thing about auto dealership operations, unlike, running a TV station or a law firm, is that, your revenue source is not singular. A dealership really consists of 5 or 6 separate businesses all rolled into one. That's right. I wish, our businesses had that. You either have clients or you don't. You either have viewers or you don't. But in a car dealership, you've got F&I, you've got banking, you've got retail used cars, retail new cars, you've got warranty, you've got customer pay, you've got real estate, all types of real estate opportunities.
Collision center. Yeah.
Yeah, some things I haven't even thought about. So, the notion here is that, look, if new car sales potentially are going to be negatively impacted, what does it mean? You need to find a solution with the other 5 or 6 business sectors and offset that. So I've been trying to convince dealers that they should look at those areas in the dealership that are correctable. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't already be operating at their maximum efficiency because all of these 7 departments should always be humming. But we all know that in most cases, dealer principals are front-end centric. They were brought typically as general sales managers, general managers, trying to address the pressures from the OEMs to increase sales, meet performance thresholds. So it's always been like the service department is, the back end literally and figuratively, and never really was paid much attention to. But the time has come for a lot of reasons, both related and unrelated to the tariffs, that dealers need to become more astute as it relates to fixed operations. And there are some gaping holes in the revenue streams that most dealers are missing that need to be corrected, because to the extent that new car sales are going to be impacted, and they probably will, even if it's for a temporary period until consumers get used to increasing from a 450 a month payment to 750 a month payment, there's going to be a period during which there are opportunities for dealer principals. Now, for example, if they're not buying new, chances are they're going to be repairing their existing car. So instead of having a car that's 7 years old, maybe the consumer is going to plan to hold that car for another 4 or 5 years until the dust settles.
Right.
So what does that mean? It means customer pay rates have to be adjusted to reflect that. There will be an impact on parts, we think. So even on the back end, parts is going to take, absorb some of the increases. So what do dealers do? So my suggestion is really pay close attention to warranty reimbursement, both parts and labor. And also understand that, and I think dealers are starting to realize this because we're getting more calls, that some games are being played by the manufacturers in passing along what they call now, it's even become a term of art, no-cost parts or exchange parts. And what that really means is, I'll use the most extreme example. If a battery, in an EV vehicle needs to be replaced,
right?
Well, we all know what the cost of a battery is now. It's between $15,000 and $25,000 for most vehicles. In some cases, even more.
Yeah.
So if a vehicle needs a new battery, under the standard reimbursement guidelines, most dealers should be entitled to the cost of that battery plus somewhere between 60 and 80% markup. $20,000 battery, should be $12,000 to $15,000 in profit center for it. So what's happening instead is a lot of manufacturers, an increasing number of OEMs, are basically giving the batteries to the dealers either for free or for a handling charge, maybe $500.
Interesting.
And, it doesn't happen a lot because it's not like batteries are being replaced every day.
Sure.
But if it happens 4 or 5 times a month, is the dealer principal really aware that that's potentially $100,000 to $125,000 in gross profit that didn't come into the dealership?
That's right.
Because it happened with great frequency, and it's not something. I mean, an astute fixed ops manager will tell the dealer, "Hey, they're playing games with us, and we need to address this."
Yeah, for
Now,
sure.
take it to the next level. What's the dealer going to do about it? Is the dealer going to sue the manufacturer for short paying it on these no-cost batteries or other items?
Right.
Well, probably not in the first instance, but what should happen is they should contact their state dealer association and say, "Hey, you need to take a poll out there and find out whether any other manufacturers are playing this game," because manufacturers are, they're always thinking 3 to 6 months ahead.
That's right.
There's going to be an increase in fixed ops. Dealers are going to become smart about this. So they're pushing back early by underpaying dealers and hoping that it slips under the radar. But there is, I would submit to you, potentially $1 million a year that is not being paid to every single rooftop that should be paid based on these games that manufacturers are playing. So when you say, what to do about the tariffs, well, there's nothing dealers can do directly about the tariffs. Hopefully take care of that. But they need to feather their own nests and offset the losses from the potential downfall in sales by increasing fixed ops. Then you have the idea that dealers are aware. I think most dealers in most states are aware that they're entitled to retail reimbursement, but they're really not, I think, practicing in the right lanes. They're having their service managers seek increases. They're having unqualified people seek increases. There's real money in getting retail reimbursement, and oftentimes what happens is there's too much discounting being done on the customer pay side, and that negatively taints a submission for retail reimbursement. So it's not just a matter of saying to your service manager, "Hey, I think we're due for an increase. Would you fill out, submit 100 consecutive repair orders and see what happens?" No. This is a very painstaking process. There's a lot that lurks. There's a lot of tricks. Every manufacturer has their own nuances and pain points.
Sure.
So something that should be taken very seriously. And there again, that could be $250,000 a year. So $1 million over 5 years, 4 or 5 years. So when sales, hurt, there are ways to pick up on it. And I think dealers now should be focusing on that because it does take 2 to 3 months to get these steps in place. And frankly, if you have to go after a manufacturer, you really don't want to do it alone. You want to involve your dealer association because they have the wherewithal to assemble. There's power in numbers.
Right.
Go through the stages of trying to resolve it amicably, and if not, If that doesn't work, then you have to talk about, getting a coalition of dealers together of a particular line make, so no one dealer thinks that they're going to be
Sure.
as a renegade and pay the price in some other way.
That's right. But at least it puts the OEMs on notice that dealers are even focused in this area, and you're not, that they're not getting one over on the dealer because the dealer is asleep at the switch on this specific topic, right?
Well, if the dealers don't stand up and say, hey, listen, we're wise to what you're giving, the manufacturers will just forge ahead with it.
Sure.
And frankly, they could do other things, because if they think dealers are not paying attention to it, they'll find ways to compensate for their lost sales.
Sure. Sure.
If you really want to be ultra conservative, what I'm telling dealers is let's get your office manager, controller, your CPA together into a room and really spend some quality time trying to analyze what the potential losses may be. I mean, there's empirical data out there where dealers can say, this is what the experts are saying as to what the impact is going to be of these lost sales.
That's right.
I typically do, I borrow from, the litigation world, where let's say we're representing a dealer who was unfairly terminated. There are models that we create of damages so that if we have to go seek, a jury award, we can explain to a jury what the losses are that the dealer has sustained.
Right.
This is not that extreme. We're not talking about suing anybody here, but we still need to have dealers figure out today what the potential losses are between, today and 12 months from today, because, and you can quantify it. So if you're losing, 15 sales a month, it's not just the gross profit on the sales. You got F&I, you got the loss of a trade-in. I mean, 60% of transactions involve a trade-in. We call these cascading damages. Dealers think, well, if I lose 15 cars sales a month, I'm going to lose, $2,500 a piece. No. What's the warranty revenue attributable to that lost sale?
Sure.
What's the customer pay? I mean, you can project forward years and years. What's the referral? There's calculations for repeat buyers, referrals to family members and friends. So one sale, you'd be shocked at how you can translate that into huge amounts of money. So if you can put together the damages model based upon the projected losses from sales deficiencies as a result of the tariffs, it's pretty compelling. Now what do you do with that? You go to your manufacturer and say, hey, listen, I know you want me to start this renovation or this separation. Like if you're a Ford Lincoln dealer, Ford wants separation. If you're a Porsche dealer, Porsche wants you to invest $7 or $8 or $10 million into a new facility. You need to put together a business case that's far more sophisticated than, hey, read the paper. Business stinks right now. You can't hold me to this facility upgrade. You need something more calculating and scientific than that.
Of course.
That's another thing that dealers should be focusing on. And the time is right because there's still inventory, so dealers are still making gross profits. They're still selling, but that may end in 30, 60, or 90 days when the inventories are depleted.
That's right.
So
That's right.
You first start dealing with this. So there's a lot that dealers should be calling their attorneys and CPAs over, and that's just one example.
I agree. Hey, switching gears a little bit, give us your perspective on the lawsuits filed to block Scout selling directly to consumers. Obviously, a lot of Volkswagen dealers specifically upset over that, Audi and Porsche as well. But talk to us about that. What update is there on that, and what's your perspective?
Sure. So those cases are winners, but I think anybody that reads the statute can say, well, Volkswagen doesn't really have a right to do this. So, all right, but that doesn't end the conversation. I think there's a strategic approach to invoking your rights with respect to direct sales. You have to figure out what it is you're really wishing for. So that the state associations that have filed the lawsuits, I think, have done a good thing, but it will be very easy for them to overplay their hand, because if they win the lawsuit, what did they really win? If I had my druthers, I would say, listen, the law's on the dealer's side, use it to your advantage, but not so much to win the case, but rather to get to a point where you can negotiate a resolution that does a number of things. Number one, it puts a stop to the long-term plan of this manufacturer of bypassing the dealer network. B, it puts other manufacturers who are watching this very closely at bay and says, wait a second, Volkswagen and Scout are not really gaining the momentum they thought they would. The
Right.
dealers are fighting back. Maybe we should avoid this whole controversy, wait and see before we implement the same model,
Sure.
what the outcome in that case is. So if I were to, craft an outcome, I would say get to the point where Volkswagen realizes it may lose this case, and then get to a negotiating table. I mean, my perfect settlement structure would be something like, all right, Volkswagen, you want to sell direct. You think the dealers don't have skills in retailing all of a sudden after 125 years? Sell your cars direct. We'll save the floor plan costs, but we want a stipend for each vehicle you sell, because you want us to keep these facilities operating, and you want our shops to repair these vehicles, because you're not going to have the infrastructure to do so. Look at what Tesla has experienced. So you're going to pay us a fair gross profit. You're going to pay us a fair stipend for our F&I. We want to have every single trade-in based on the geographic area where your customer leads are coming from. We want those trade-ins. We want the ability to perform warranty work on those vehicles at statutory reasonable rates.
Sure.
So there is an end result that kind of like gives Volkswagen what it wants, and it gives the dealers the same profit structure without the corresponding overhead. And that's why I say it's easier to overplay your hand and say, oh, great, we won. Now Volkswagen has to send us, 100 Scouts.
Yeah.
Now your floor plan went up. Your human resources overhead, your insurance went up. So there's an art to actually
there's a middle ground there that might benefit dealers better than if they won the suit, right? And the other thing that should be talked about is the fact that this is state by state, right? There's no federal law in place that protects the dealers, right? So if in the event that Scout comes out and says, "Hey, we won in 30 out of the 50 states," we'll take that and just not sell cars in those other 20 states.
That's why I think it's important that each state, right now you have Florida and California, presumably others will follow. But yes, folks might say, look, if I only have to make peace in a handful of states, it's cheaper that settling now than waiting for the other 55 or 54 states to sue us.
Sure.
So it would be smart, and I think these states that were out front and center now are in a good position. But also, because they're separate laws in separate states, they all say essentially the same thing. So Volkswagen runs the risk, and I will tell you, I'm investigating the idea of a class action lawsuit. It might have to be a little bifurcated, because it's not, as you pointed out, it's not one single law, federal law. It's 50 different state statutes, or not exactly 50, but the majority of the states have no direct sales statutes.
Right.
So there is a possibility that Volkswagen could wind up not being able to parse out these cases and settle them individually. So it's difficult for them to figure out when the right time to reach a settlement is. So this is high stakes negotiation in the context.
Everybody's watching this, that's for sure.
Yeah. But I think every state dealer association needs to be on top of it, and they need to be figuring out how to play it and to what extent to fight, and where they want to be in a potential settlement. But dealers are holding the cards, and unfortunately, dealers don't like to sue manufacturers for obvious reasons, political reasons. But that's why the state dealer associations and the National Dealer Association plays a vital role in serving as an intermediary.
That's right. That's right. Speaking of class action suits and settlements, talk to us about the CDK and Reynolds situation. When are dealers going to start seeing the fruits of that lawsuit?
Okay, good question. So just to refresh everybody's memory, we settled the CDK and the Reynolds case combined for $129.5 million. Reynolds settled a few years ago, and we just recently settled with CDK. So right now, all of the dealers that are eligible have, or hopefully most of them, have submitted their claim forms. There was a deadline a few months ago to do that, and now the claims administrator, the class action settlement administrator, is doing the mathematical calculations to figure out the amount of money that each dealership that has filed a claim is entitled to recover. Keep in mind, there was a 10-year window. So just to use an example, a dealer who used CDK or Reynolds continuously for 10 years has a bigger piece of the pie. A dealer who only used CDK for 1 year has got a lesser piece of the pie. So right now they're figuring out how big the pie is and how many slivers over roughly 9,000 dealers
Sure.
who are eligible, 9,000 dealer principals, probably 12,000 rooftops or so. So we're looking at August or September for those checks to be written and sent to the dealers. So we're about 3 months away from payday for all the dealers involved.
Nice. Very nice. Wow. That was great work on that deal. So Len Bellavia, founding partner of the law firm of Bellavia Blatt, also known as dealerlaw.com. Thank you so much for stopping by CBT News. It's always great catching up with you, and you're the calm, soothing voice that most dealers turn to all dealers turn to, I should say, to get what the real skinny is on these issues pressing today's car dealers. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. I learn more from them than they do from me, because they're the entrepreneurs. So oftentimes we temper the legal arguments based on what happens in the real world on the showroom floor. I'm always visiting the dealers so I can get an education myself. But thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.